Yo, what's going on? I thought about watching this alone, but I was like, nah, let me watch it with y'all. I'm be laying back. Don't want y'all to think like I'm in like a stationary position or something. That'd be weird. Anyways, sorry, I was grabbing my phone. Let's get into it. That looks a lot better. Here we go. I'm just trying to position it. See what's the best position for the camera, of course. Okay, I can do this.
We know the Grand Theft Auto formula changed gaming forever, setting the gold standard for open world mayhem, storytelling, and freedom. But here's the thing. GTA's dominance inspired countless imitators. Some innovated, some flopped, and a few, just maybe, deserve a seat at GTA's table. Today we're diving into the wild world of GTA clones by ranking 8 iconic game series inspired by GTA to determine which one stands above the rest as the greatest GTA clone of all time. From innovative gameplay to jaw-dropping failures, we'll explore what these games got right, where they fell short, and why some of them remain unforgettable. So let's jump into it, starting with one of the oldest GTA clones, The Getaway. A game that traded GTA's sprawling American cities for the gritty realism of London. Released in 2002, this PlayStation 2 exclusive promised to deliver an immersive open-world experience with a cinematic flair, one that hoped to rival Grand Theft Auto's early dominance. At its core, The Getaway was a love letter to London. Unlike GTA's unhinged chaos, this game aimed to replicate the streets of London with stunning detail for the time, which we'll explain in a second. The story followed two protagonists, Mark Hammond, a former criminal forced back into the underworld to save his son, and Detective Frank Carter, who's unraveling the same web of crime from the other side of the law. It was an ambitious attempt to blend Hollywood storytelling with open-world gameplay. Now, here's where things get interesting. Developers at Team Soho wanted The Getaway to stand out by going toe-to-toe with GTA, but with a more mature, realistic approach. Gone were the mini-maps and HUDs, and instead, the game relied on subtle visual cues like turn signals and brake lights to guide players through the missions. It was a bold design choice aimed at full immersion. But with that ambition came challenges. The game was in development for over 4 years, during which GTA 3 skyrocketed the open-world genre to mainstream success. The pressure to deliver grew to astronomical heights. Where The Getaway shined, though, was its atmosphere. The recreation of London was breathtaking for 2002, offering a level of detail that other games simply could not match. From the iconic red buses to the winding alleys of Soho, The Getaway's focus on a grounded cinematic experience set it apart, with intense car chases and shootouts that felt straight out of a Guy Ritchie movie. And let's not forget the seamless transitions between gameplay and cutscenes. For its time, this was groundbreaking and added to the immersion. Unfortunately, The Getaway's ambition was also its Achilles heel. The lack of a HUD, while innovative, often left players frustrated. Navigating London streets with just turn signals was more confusing than immersive for many players. And then there were the controls. Clunky driving mechanics and awkward combat systems made certain missions feel more like a chore than a thrill. Add to that a frustrating checkpoint system, and the game's cinematic ambition, sometimes working against it, really ruined its fun factor.
That's it. I've had it up to here with your lunatic antics. What the hell do you think you were doing?
Despite its flaws, The Getaway left a lasting impression for players. Critics praised its ambition and atmosphere, even if they didn't love the execution. It earned a solid cult following, especially among fans of British crime dramas. But in the grand scheme of things, The Getaway felt like a game that aimed high but didn't quite stick the landing. It's remembered more for what it tried to do than for what it actually achieved. So, for all these reasons, I have to rank The Getaway in our They Tried tier. Next up, we have the true crime games, and since we're ranking by the best games in a series, let's just look at the game that started it all. True Crime Streets of LA. A game that didn't just aim to compete with GTA, it tried to one-up it by blending elements of open-world gameplay with martial arts combat, detective work, and a sprawling Hollywood-style story. Released in 2003 by Activision, this was a bold attempt to bring something new to the table. Thanks to developer Luxoflux being based in Los Angeles, Streets of LA portrayed a highly detailed version of the city. True Crime LA put players in the shoes of Nick Kang, a brash, loose-cannon cop with a penchant for bending the rules. Think of him as the video game equivalent of every 90s action movie cop trope rolled into one character. The game wasn't just about open-world chaos, it had a structured narrative with branching paths. Depending on your choices, the story could lead to one of 3 different endings, which was pretty ambitious for the time. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. True Crime was Activision's answer to GTA. While Rockstar Games leaned into playing as a criminal, True Crime flipped the script by letting you play as the law. Since Nick Kang wasn't exactly a by-the-book cop, developers believed this would keep the game edgy enough to appeal to fans of Rockstar's grittier stories. Developers at Luxoflux aimed to stand out by offering a full recreation of Los Angeles, freeways, landmarks, and everything. The team wanted to create a game where players felt like they were stepping into a real, breathing city, not just a sandbox to cause chaos. But ambition has its price. While True Crime tried to do it all, it didn't always execute well. The driving mechanics felt stiff, the gunplay was a bit clunky, and the martial arts combat, while fun at first, could become pretty repetitive over time. The AI wasn't exactly groundbreaking either. Criminals and NPCs often acted in hilariously unrealistic ways, which could pull you out of the experience, and while the branching storylines were ambitious, they weren't always well executed, with some endings feeling rushed or unsatisfying. Critics were split on True Crime. Some praised its variety and ambition, while others felt it tried to do too much and ended up being a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of game. Still, it developed a cult following, particularly among players who loved its over-the-top Hollywood vibe and didn't mind its rough edges. It even spawned a sequel, True Crime New York City, which doubled down on the formula, but ultimately couldn't match the success of its predecessor, and while the series faded into obscurity, its DNA lived on, evolving into another game we'll rank later on in this video. So, while the True Crime series carved out its own unique identity, it ultimately couldn't come close to the impact or success of GTA, with a legacy that fizzled out after its first game. That's why you'll find the True Crime series also firmly in the "they tried" tier. Now, when you think of GTA clones, you probably expect a certain level of imitation, but Scarface: The World Is Yours took it a step further. Not only competing with GTA, but building on the legacy of one of the most iconic crime films of all time.
Say hello to my little friend!
Released in 2006, this game had one burning question at its core. What if Tony Montana didn't die in the final scene of Scarface? Set in an alternate timeline where Tony survives his iconic last stand, the game picks up with him rebuilding his empire from the ground up. You start with nothing, not even your mansion, and work your way back to the top of Miami's criminal underworld. From the beginning, it's clear that Scarface isn't just using the movie's name to sell copies. This game acts as a full-on sequel, complete with a story that expands on Tony's character while staying true to the original's larger-than-life tone. It's loud, brash, and unapologetically over the top, just like Tony himself. So, how do you take on GTA and stand out? You lean into what makes Scarface iconic. Developer Radical Entertainment wanted to create a game that felt like playing through a crime saga, blending GTA's open-world structure with an emphasis on storytelling and empire building. One notable detail: Al Pacino didn't reprise his role as Tony, but he personally approved the voice actor who took his place.
Why you gotta talk to me like that, huh? Like you got some fucking baseball bat up or something.
You would know what that feels like, Cubano.
The team also went all in on authenticity, pulling in writers from the original film to ensure the dialogue and world building felt true to Tony's character. But the most interesting twist? Scarface was essentially a direct response to GTA Vice City, which borrowed so heavily from the movie's aesthetic that it might as well have been official fan fiction. This game was an attempt to reclaim that Miami vibe and remind players where the inspiration came from. One of the game's standout features was its unique take on economic progression. Instead of just completing missions, you had to manage drug deals, expand your territory, and reinvest your earnings to grow your empire. The more power you gained, the more lavish your lifestyle became, culminating in buying back Tony's iconic mansion. The combat system also added flair. Tony's Rage Mode lets you unleash a frenzy of bullets while yelling colorful insults in true Montana fashion. And let's not forget the robust dialogue system that let you intimidate or charm NPCs during drug deals and other negotiations. It added an extra layer of strategy to the gameplay. And of course, there was the music, with a killer soundtrack featuring 80s hits and Latin tracks. Scarface created an atmosphere that felt as stylish as it was dangerous. But not everything was perfect. While the empire-building mechanics were fun, they could feel repetitive over time. Many missions boiled down to variations of kill these guys or deliver this package, which didn't always do justice to the game's ambitious premise. The controls were also a mixed bag. Driving felt stiff compared to GTA, and the aiming system, while serviceable, wasn't nearly as smooth or intuitive. Plus, the game's open world lacked some of the life and spontaneity that made Rockstar cities feel alive. Miami and Scarface looked great, but it often felt more like a backdrop than a dynamic, breathing world. And critics were divided. Some praised Scarface for its bold storytelling and dedication to expanding the film's legacy, while others felt it leaned too heavily on the source material without fully stepping out of GTA's shadow. Players, however, were more forgiving, especially fans of the movie, who loved the chance to step into Tony's shoes and rewrite his story. Over the years, the game has earned cult classic status, particularly for its faithful recreation of Tony Montana's world and its unique take on the open-world crime genre. It may not have dethroned GTA or even came close, but for fans of Scarface, it was an unforgettable experience. So while Scarface didn't revolutionize the genre, it delivered something GTA couldn't: the chance to be Tony Montana. And for that reason alone, Scarface firmly plants itself in the let them cook tier. But how does our next contender, the Saints Row series, stack up? Let's look at how a game that started as a GTA clone evolved into something entirely its own. When the first Saints Row hit the scene in 2006, it was a blatant GTA clone, right down to its gang warfare storyline and open world chaos. But by the time Saints Row 2 and Saints Row 3 rolled around, the series had carved out a niche all its own, one filled with absurd humor, over-the-top action, and a willingness to be as ridiculous as possible. Let's start with Saints Row 2. Released in 2008, this sequel expanded on the foundation of the first game, but added a ton of personality. It was still a story about gang warfare, but it wasn't afraid to get a little weird. You played as the boss, a character who wakes up from a coma, escapes prison, and sets out to rebuild the 3rd Street Saints gang. What followed was a mix of drama, revenge, and just enough silliness to set it apart from its competitors. Then came Saints Row 3 in 2011, and this is where the series fully embraced its identity. By now, the Saints had become a global brand, a parody of celebrity culture and corporate greed. You weren't just a gang leader, you were a media mogul, an action hero, and a walking meme generator. The tone shifted from grounded crime drama to full-on absurdity, and fans loved it. Volition, the developers behind Saints Row, knew they couldn't beat GTA at its own game, so they decided to do the opposite. While Rockstar was doubling down on realism and cinematic storytelling with GTA 4 and later GTA 5, Saints Row leaned into chaos and fun. They wanted players to feel like they were in an action movie, or maybe a cartoon, where anything could happen. The zigzag was risky, especially for Saints Row 3. Volition completely rebranded the series, ditching much of its serious tone in favor of outrageous stunts, wild characters, and an anything-goes attitude. It was a gamble, but it paid off. So what made Saints Row good? For one, the sheer variety of gameplay. While in Saints Row 2 you could do everything from spraying buildings with sewage trucks to fighting off gangs in high-octane turf wars, Saints Row 3 took gameplay to the next level, introducing some of the most over-the-top features the genre had ever seen. Jetpacks, shark guns, weaponized sex toys, you name it, it was there. The game also streamlined a lot of mechanics, making it more accessible without sacrificing depth. Activities like insurance fraud, where you'd throw yourself into traffic to rack up cash, became fan-favorite distractions. Customization was another standout feature. Whether it was your character, your gang, or even your vehicles, Saints Row gave you the tools to make the game feel personal. Want to lead a gang of luchadors while dressed as a giant hot dog? Go for it. But as fun as the Saints Row games were, they weren't without their flaws. In Saints Row 2, the controls could be clunky, and the AI wasn't exactly the smartest. The graphics, even for the time, were a bit rough around the edges, which made the game feel less polished compared to the game series they tried to copy, Grand Theft Auto. Saints Row 3, while more polished, leaned so heavily into absurdity that some fans felt it lost the heart of the earlier games. The story, while entertaining, didn't have the same emotional weight as Saints Row 2. It was more about the spectacle than the substance, which didn't sit well with everyone. Critically, both Saints Row 2 and Saints Row 3 were well received. Players loved the humor, the creativity, and the sheer fun of it all. Saints Row 2 is often considered the best in the series for its balance of drama and silliness, while Saints Row 3 is praised for its boldness in redefining what the franchise could be. Over the years, both games had developed cult followings. For many players, Saints Row represents something unique in the open-world genre, a willingness to embrace chaos and prioritize fun above all else. It didn't just compete with GTA, it offered an entirely different experience and eventually changed GTA, with many comparing GTA Online's zany updates to things you may find in Saints Row. So, while GTA perfected the art of gritty realism, Saints Row delivered something GTA never could: the freedom to be completely ridiculous, all while leaving its fingerprints all over the direction of GTA's future, and that's why you'll find it in the GTA tier. But how does a game like Mafia fit into this landscape? Let's dive into a series that traded chaos for a more grounded cinematic approach.
Boom, 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 boom.
You pull this off, I won't forget it. Trust me.
I'm gonna shoot you right down.
If Saints Row leaned into chaos and comedy, Mafia went in the complete opposite direction, offering a more grounded and cinematic experience. The Mafia series was less about causing mayhem and more about immersing you in a meticulously crafted crime story. So, let's look at Mafia 2 and 3, the games that truly defined this franchise. Despite starting in 2002, it was Mafia 2 in 2010 that truly put the franchise on the map. Set in the 1940s and 50s, this game took players to Empire Bay, a fictional city inspired by New York and Chicago. You played as Vito Scaletta, an immigrant trying to rise through the ranks of the mob. Think of it as a love letter to classic gangster movies with all the betrayal, loyalty, and ambition that you'd expect. Then came Mafia 3 in 2016, a game that took a bold new direction. This time, the story shifted to the 1960s and introduced Lincoln Clay, a Vietnam War veteran seeking revenge against the Italian mob for betraying his surrogate family. The game traded the old-school Mafia aesthetic for a gritty exploration of racial tension, organized crime, and revenge in New Bordeaux, a city inspired by New Orleans. The Mafia games were always compared to GTA, but the developers at 2K and Hangar 13 didn't try to replicate Rockstar's formula. Instead, they doubled down on storytelling. For Mafia 2, the goal was to make players feel like they were part of a Scorsese or Coppola film. Every mission, every character interaction was designed to serve the narrative. With Mafia 3, the development team wanted to push the boundaries of what stories could be told in an open-world title. So Hangar 13 emphasized a deep examination of the era's social issues, allowing players to experience the 60s in the shoes of a character video games rarely allow us to walk in. The devs did this believing it would make the game stand out in an increasingly crowded open-world genre. But what makes the Mafia games special? Both Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 featured some of the best writing and character development in the genre. Mafia 2 was a slow burn, focusing on Vito's rise through the mob and the personal sacrifices that came with it. Mafia 3, on the other hand, gave players a more personal story. Lincoln Clay's quest for revenge wasn't just about taking over territories, it was about dismantling an empire piece by piece. The game introduced a territory management system where you could assign underbosses to control areas of New Bordeaux, adding a layer of strategy to the gameplay. The attention to detail is another standout in the series. In Mafia 2, the cars, the fashion, the music, everything screamed 1940s and 50s authenticity. Meanwhile, Mafia 3's New Bordeaux felt alive with its swampy bayous, vibrant jazz clubs, and neighborhoods brimming with personality. The soundtracks for both games were phenomenal, perfectly capturing their respective time periods. But no game is perfect, and the Mafia series has its share of flaws. In Mafia 2, the open world looked amazing, but it often felt empty. Outside of missions, there wasn't much to do, which hurt its replay value. The driving, while realistic, could also feel sluggish compared to the fast-paced action of GTA. Mafia 3 faced even bigger challenges. While the story and characters were praised, the gameplay loop became repetitive. Taking over territories was fun at first, but the lack of mission variety made it feel like you were doing the same thing over and over again. The AI was also criticized for being too predictable, which made combat less engaging than it could have been. Critics and players had mixed feelings about both games. Mafia 2 was praised for its narrative and atmosphere, but criticized for its lack of depth in the open world. Despite this, it is considered a cult classic, with fans still praising its emotional storytelling and the unforgettable bond between Vito and his best friend, Joe Barbaro. But Mafia 3 was more polarizing. While its story and ambition were lauded, the repetitive gameplay held it back from greatness. Still, it earned a loyal following, especially for its willingness to tackle through tough topics and its incredible depiction of the 1960s. And let's not forget the Mafia Definitive Edition remaster, completely remaking Mafia 1, which introduced the series to a whole new generation of gamers, cementing Mafia's legacy as a franchise that dared to be different. The Mafia series showed us that not every GTA-like game needs satirical, chaotic violence to thrive. Sometimes a strong story and an immersive world are enough to leave a lasting impression. It gets close to reaching GTA status, but lands in the high, let them cook tier. What do you get when you combine the gritty realism of GTA with the stylized action of Hong Kong cinema? Sleeping Dogs is the answer. Released in 2012, this game was an ambitious attempt to deliver a unique open-world experience, and it succeeded in ways no one expected. Sleeping Dogs takes you to the bustling streets of Hong Kong, where you play as Wei Shen, an undercover cop infiltrating the Sun On Yi triad. It's a story of loyalty, betrayal, and the constant struggle between Wei's duty as a cop and his bond with the criminal world. Think of it as The Departed meets Grand Theft Auto. But here's the kicker. Sleeping Dogs almost didn't exist. It started as True Crime Hong Kong, a sequel in the True Crime series, but the project was canceled by Activision in 2011. Square Enix saw potential in the game, picked it up, and rebranded it as Sleeping Dogs, a risky move that paid off in a big way. From the start, developer United Front Games wanted Sleeping Dogs to feel different from other open-world games. Instead of trying to outdo GTA in chaos or scale, they focused on creating a tight, character-driven story and a setting that felt authentic. Hong Kong wasn't just a backdrop, it was a character in itself, from its crowded street markets to its glowing skyscrapers. United Front Games also leaned heavily on martial arts combat, a deliberate departure from the gun-focused gameplay of most open-world games. The goal was to make every fight feel cinematic and visceral, with fluid animations and environmental takedowns straight out of a Jackie Chan movie. So, what exactly made Sleeping Dogs stand out? Well, let's start with the combat. The melee system was one of the game's biggest selling points, drawing comparisons to the Batman Arkham series. Wei Shen could chain together brutal combos, counterattacks, and use the environment to his advantage. Slamming an enemy into a fish tank or glowing neon sign never got old. Shooting was solid too, driving mechanics were surprisingly polished, and then there's the city itself. Hong Kong in Sleeping Dogs was vibrant, dense, and teeming with life. The game was packed with side activities like races, karaoke, street fights, and even dim sum dates. It balanced its dark, gritty narrative with moments of levity, making the world feel both dangerous and fun. But not everything about Sleeping Dogs was perfect. The open world design, while immersive, could also feel limited compared to GTA. Let's not forget the story either. It was gripping, but some felt the ending didn't quite stick the landing, leaving a few loose threads. But in hindsight, there's a reason. When Sleeping Dogs launched, it didn't sell as well as Square Enix had hoped, but it quickly gained a dedicated fanbase. Critics praised its story, combat, and world design, calling it a sleeper hit. Over time, it became a cult classic, with players still reminiscing about its unforgettable moments and hoping for a sequel that, sadly, never came. A cancelled sequel and ultimately a dead franchise is why I don't knock Sleeping Dogs' story for those loose threads. Now, Sleeping Dogs wasn't just a great game, it was a unique entry in the open world genre, proving that you don't need to be bigger to be better. A reminder that when developers take risks and create a truly special and unique experience, they carve out a niche in a genre dominated by giants. And for that reason, Sleeping Dogs lands solidly in the GTA tier. When you think of GTA clones, one game probably doesn't come to mind. Lego City Undercover. But believe it or not, this family-friendly take on the open-world formula is as much a love letter to Grand Theft Auto as it is a brilliant parody of cop dramas. Released in 2013 as a Wii U exclusive, Lego City Undercover was developed by TT Fusion, a studio known for the wildly popular Lego games based on franchises like Star Wars and Harry Potter. But this time, they ditched the licenses and built an original LEGO universe centered around Chase McCain, a charming and somewhat overconfident cop tasked with taking down the criminal mastermind, Rex Fury. The game was often described as GTA for kids, but that undersells just how clever it actually is. While it borrows the structure of open-world games, its tone is classic LEGO comedic gold, filled with slapstick humor, playful parodies, and enough pop culture references to make even adults chuckle. It's no secret that GTA was an inspiration for Lego City Undercover. The developers leaned into the similarities, creating a sprawling open world with driving, collectibles, and plenty of side activities. But instead of aiming for realism, TT Fusion fully embraced the Lego charm, turning the city into a vibrant playground made entirely of Lego bricks. One of the biggest challenges during the development was taking advantage of the Wii U's unique features, like the gamepad. It served as Chase's communicator, map, and even a scanner for finding hidden items. This integration made the game feel tailored to the Wii U, though it later found a second life on other platforms. Now, let's talk about the good. At its core, Lego City Undercover is a classic Lego game with an open-world twist. You can explore a massive city, commandeer vehicles, and chase down criminals, all while collecting an absurd amount of Lego studs. But what really sets it apart is its emphasis on disguises. Chase can unlock and wear different outfits that grant him unique abilities, like breaking into safes or climbing walls. And then there's the humor.
I broke the coffee machine.
Language!
Lego City Undercover doesn't take itself seriously for a second. The dialogue is packed with witty banter and absurd scenarios. One moment you're rescuing a cat from a tree, and the next, you're involved in a high-speed chase through a construction site, all while listening to hilarious police radio chatter. The driving mechanics are surprisingly smooth, and the variety of vehicles ranging from sleek sports cars to cute ice cream trucks adds a fun layer to the exploration. And let's not forget the platforming sections, which are more engaging than you would expect from a game taking inspiration from GTA. Now, of course, Lego City Undercover is far from perfect. One of the most common complaints at launch was the painfully long loading times on the Wii U. Imagine spending over a minute staring at a loading screen every single time you entered a new area. It was a serious buzzkill. The combat also felt pretty basic. While the game nailed exploration and humor, the brawls with criminals often boiled down to simple button mashing. And as charming as the story was, it lacked the depth or stakes of a more serious narrative, which might make it less appealing to players looking for a grittier experience. Despite these flaws, Lego City Undercover received high praise for its humor, creativity, and sheer charm. Critics loved its vibrant world and how it managed to be fun for both kids and adults. It didn't break sales records, but it carved out a niche as a cult classic, especially after it was re-released on multiple platforms in 2017. For many players, Lego City Undercover was a reminder that open-world games don't always have to be bloody and serious. Sometimes you just want to drive a Lego fire truck through a city while chasing a criminal dressed as a clown. And honestly, isn't pure fun what gaming's all about? Given LEGO City Undercover proved you can make an open world game that's lighthearted and family friendly in a crowded market filled with GTA knockoffs in a way that was so different, let's rank this also in the GTA. When it comes to GTA inspired games, there's another series with dogs in the title. And of course, I'm talking about Watch Dogs. Now, Watch Dogs aimed to do more than just replicate the crime-filled sandbox. It introduced a unique twist. Technology is your ultimate weapon. With its promise of hacking the world, Ubisoft's Watch Dogs series had the potential to redefine the genre. But did it deliver? The first Watch Dogs launched in 2014, riding a massive wave of hype.
Oh my god, it's gorgeous.
Set in a near-future Chicago controlled by a Central Operating System, or CTOS, it put players in the shoes of Aiden Pierce, a vigilante hacker with a tragic backstory. The game promised to blend the open-world chaos of GTA with a tech-driven cyberpunk edge, and when it released, it flopped. Despite selling incredibly well, it failed to meet expectations from critics and players as videos claiming false advertising flooded YouTube and Reddit. Its 2016 sequel, Watch Dogs 2, shifted gears completely, trading the grim tones of Chicago for the vibrant, sun-soaked streets of San Francisco. It introduced Marcus Holloway, a young hacker with a more charismatic and rebellious vibe. This was Ubisoft's attempt to address the criticisms of the first game and bring more personality to the series. Its follow-up in 2020, Watch Dogs Legion, evolved its gameplay even further, but sadly never reached the high mark set by Watch Dogs 2 and was probably the most hated game in the franchise. From the beginning, Watch Dogs had to deal with inevitable comparisons to GTA. Both featured sprawling cities, vehicles to steal, and a mix of crime and action. But Ubisoft wanted Watch Dogs to feel more grounded, focusing on hacking and surveillance as tools for empowerment and chaos. One of the biggest challenges was delivering on the series' ambitious vision. The first Watch Dogs was famously downgraded from its jaw-dropping E3 2012 demo, leaving players disappointed when the final product didn't quite match the promise. Ubisoft learned from this backlash, refining the sequel to be more playful and polished, while leaning into the strengths of its core concept. So what did the Watch Dogs series do well? Well, for starters, the hacking mechanics, especially in the Watch Dogs 2 sandbox, were a game changer. Whether you were overloading a power grid, remotely controlling vehicles, or turning enemies' drones against them, the sheer creativity in how you could approach missions was unlike anything GTA offered. The lighthearted vibe of Watch Dogs 2 worked wonders. Marcus Holloway and the DeadSec crew brought humor, style, and personality to the stories, while the game world was packed with cultural references, quirky side missions, and dynamic ways to interact with the environment. Plus, the addition of drones and remote-controlled vehicles gave players even more tools to cause mayhem. And then there's Legion. The play-as-anyone mechanic might not have been perfect, but it was undeniably innovative. Recruiting a team of operatives with unique abilities like a construction worker who could summon a cargo drone gave the gameplay a sandbox feel that encouraged experimentation. But for all its innovation, the Watch Dogs series had its flaws, and it had many of them. The first game was criticized for its overly serious tone and a protagonist who, let's face it, wasn't exactly brimming with charisma. Aiden Pierce's grim revenge story felt one note, and the game's world, while visually impressive, lacked the vibrancy and personality of its competitors. Watch Dogs 2 improved on many fronts. Some players felt its focus on humor and satire clashed with its darker themes of surveillance and corporate corruption, though. And though Marcus was a more relatable character, the game's pacing occasionally dragged due to repetitive side missions. As for Legion, the play-as-anyone system was both its biggest strength and its greatest weakness. Without a central protagonist, the narrative lacked emotional weight, and many of the characters you could recruit felt like they were procedurally generated filler. Not to mention technical issues and a failure to live up to its ambitious premise. The Watch Dogs series grew to become polarizing among critics and players. The first game sold incredibly well, but its mixed reception left many players feeling burned. Ubisoft managed to win back goodwill with Watch Dogs 2, which gained a cult following for its charm, creativity, and much improved gameplay. Despite the mixed reviews, the lows, and the highs, the series as a whole has cemented its place as one of the most unique open world experiences out there, blending technology and social commentary in ways few games have dared to try. For that, Watch Dogs lands in the They Tried tier. And there you have it, the ultimate GTA clones tier list. Let me know if you agree with my list or if there were...
That's crazy. Nothing made it to the delete list. Delete this list. Okay. I Slave thought they gonna put Lego Undercover on there. I'm happy they didn't. Ooh, I almost dropped my computer. We don't want that. Anyways, I'm gonna see you on the next one. Y'all stay tuned.